Hello, welcome to another episode. It is a rainy day here in Southern California, which we're so spoiled with good weather here. So it makes us all, chilly and cozy. But gosh, did we need the rain after the fires we had out here. So this week is part 2 of our gut health and fertility discussion. So we're going to kind of nerd out this week. If you like science, you like data, you love to know about what we're getting off of these lab panels that we run, this is going to be an episode for you because we're going to do a little section deep dive on the GI map, which is the gut test that we use. So last week we talked about a client case with someone who came to us and had a number of issues going on in her gut that were impacting her ability to get and stay pregnant. She worked through those issues and she's now pregnant. Okay, so we talked about her case. Go back and listen to that if you want to hear kind of a higher level overview of what we see on the GI map and how that related to a client who was having a lot of trouble and what, we worked through so that she could get pregnant. This week, I want to talk to you about some specifics. So again, it's going to get sciencey and nerdy, but I know there's a lot of you out there in the community who love to know what's on these labs. So what we're going to do is cover the section of the GI map, which is one of my favorite sections. It's called the intestinal health markers. This is a section at the bottom of the test, and it gives us so much information about what's going on with your digestion, with other GI markers, with your immune response and inflammation that tell us so much about what's going on with your fertility and other symptoms that you're experiencing that most people are like, well, this is totally unrelated. I have headaches and I get acne, or like, these foods bother me, or I'm bloating or gas. I know that doesn't matter for fertility. And I'm like, oh, but it does. So let's deep dive on this and let's just hop in. So the intestinal health marker section, the GI map, some of you may have run this test before, so you can pull it up and take a look. We get steatocrit and elastase. And these are two markers that tell us how well you're digesting fat and protein and how well you're absorbing your nutrients and minerals. So if your steatocrit is high, you're going to have trouble digesting fat. We need saturated fat to create hormones in our body. If your elastase is low, this is a marker. This is a pancreatic enzyme. It's made by the pancreas. And if you don't have enough of it, medically speaking, when it gets really low, like below 200, they'll call it pancreatic insufficiency, which they don't really have a path forward for beyond pancreatic enzyme replacement. But what we see in practice is clients that are in this category a lot of times are dealing with low stomach acid. So let's keep unpeeling the onion layer here and what that means. If you're having trouble digesting fats or you've got, low elastase, we can throw some digestive enzymes at that can be incredibly helpful, especially in the short term. Some people like to take them ongoing, especially when they're going to a restaurant or having a heavier than normal meal. But what is going on in your body that is causing this? We're always digging a layer deeper to say, what's the root cause of this issue? And a lot of times low stomach acid is playing a role here. So this is, again, a big paradigm shift from what we're commonly told, because a lot of times what we'll see with clients that don't have great markers in this digestion category is that they are popping Tums, they are popping Rolaids, they're popping antacids, or they maybe have a prescription for a PPI that is keeping stomach acid low, because the medical belief here is that stomach acid causes some of these symptoms and we need to reduce it. In reality, what happens, especially as we're aging, which you're aging from the day you're born, but the older you get, the more your natural stomach acid tends to decline. And you don't have as much as you used to have. And you may have symptoms like heartburn and indigestion and some abdominal pain and other things that you don't even know are happening where you're not absorbing your nutrients and minerals well, even if you're eating really, really good. You're not absorbing things properly because your digestion isn't working properly. So you have trouble getting and staying pregnant. Your periods are wonky. You have headaches. You have acne because you're not getting the nutrients to your cells and the minerals to your cells that they need. And a lot of times people are trying to squash stomach acid, which is making the problem worse. So we go back to that. Is it low stomach acid? We have tests on another marker or markers on another test that are looking for things just like that. Ready for another onion layer? The next layer beneath that is like, why is stomach acid low? Well, stomach acid can be depleted by stress. So if you're living in a state of chronic stress, that can be a factor. Zinc deficiency can cause low stomach acid because zinc is a precursor to hydrochloric acid, which is stomach acid. And if you've got low zinc, you're going to have digestive issues. You're going to have immune system issues. You're going to get sick more often than others. And when you get sick, it's probably going to knock you down harder, and you're going to just have a harder time with your immune system because of that. Okay, that's the digestive section. The next section is called GI markers. And there's a couple of things here that are so related to fertility, especially B-glucuronidase. So that's the first one. Big word. What does it mean? Well, B-glucuronidase, anytime it's high, it tells me that the liver is struggling, and the liver is struggling to properly detoxify estrogen. So we will see estrogen recirculating throughout the body when B-glucuronidase is high, which can cause a litany of systemic issues. A lot of the problems that women come to us with, fertility and otherwise related, when B-glucuronidase is high, is they've got painful periods. Their periods are irregular. They're getting incredibly moody, a lot of anxiety. They've got headaches. They've got acne. And then they've also got gut issues going on because this estrogen is recirculating. Now, everyone's going to look a little bit different, but those are the common things we see when B-glucuronidase is high. And this points me to saying your liver needs some love. Your liver is not doing a good job of detoxifying estrogen and other things in your environment. And if it's not doing a good job of that, it's going to be really hard for you to get and stay pregnant. And we see this elevated quite frequently. Sometimes it's in a client who likes to have a couple drinks on the weekend. Most clients, by the time they get to us, have either cut out alcohol completely or cut way back. But maybe they're still having a couple drinks with their friends 1 or 2 nights a week. And that's enough to stress their liver out on top of everything else. Your liver being stressed and needing some love doesn't mean that you're a heavy drinker. Living in our society with the food supply that we have and the toxins in the air and the water and the plastics and everything else, our livers get congested, especially if we haven't paid attention to it. Okay. The next marker on here is called blood. Anytime we see blood come back on the GI map, I know that, well, a couple things. First of all, I'm going to tell you as a client, hey, I want you to go see a GI doc just to be safe, because sometimes blood can be a sign of a bigger issue than what we're working on here root cause wise. So we'll always say like, hey, if there's blood, let's just go get it checked out. Go to a GI doc, take them your GI map, check that out. But we haven't had anybody come back with a, terrifying diagnosis that's had to do that. And we do see blood come up. I won't say frequently, but we see it come up occasionally. It probably comes up in like 5 to 10% of our GI maps. And a lot of times what's going on there is these other things that are out of whack on the GI map. Some of them we're talking about today. Some of them are up higher on the GI map, which would take me, 2 hours to get through the whole thing. So I'm not going to cover all of it. But if you've got a lot of opportunistic or bad bacteria overgrowth, and you've got inflammation from H. pylori, you've got, you've got a parasite, you've got yeast overgrowth, anything that's causing a lot of inflammation in the gut can also lead to blood in the stool. It can also be hemorrhoids or something along those lines. But when we see blood here, it tells me like that the GI tract is inflamed. It's upset. And if the GI tract is inflamed and upset, it's not going to do a good job of properly digesting, detoxifying, and eliminating, which is what we need to see for you to have healthy fertility. Everything in our practice is focused around helping you improve your fertility so you can bring a baby home. But it's not a secret, but the secret, if you will, here is that everything we're doing to improve your fertility is going to improve your overall quality of life, because at the root of all the things we do to improve fertility, we're increasing cellular health and energy and reducing inflammation, which is going to reduce other symptoms in your life so you can actually enjoy your day-to-day life a lot more and bring home your baby. Okay, those are the GI markers. Immune response gives us so much information, and we see a whole lot of things out of whack in this section. I would say on the majority of GI maps, we're dealing with what's called SIGA, secretory IgA, either way too low or way too high. What is SIGA? It is a marker for the immune system in the gut. From what we know right now in research, and it's ever evolving as we learn more about the gut and the microbiome, about 70 to 80% of the immune system lives in the gut. So the majority of your immune system lives in your gut. A lot of times our clients are coming to us in a state of chronic stress and burnout, and their SIGA levels are going to be completely tanked, which tells me your immune system is exhausted, it's given up, it is not doing its job. And if your immune system is off like that, it's going to be really hard to get and stay pregnant. Now, on the flip side, a lot of times when we've got, active autoimmunity happening, we see it alongside most frequently thyroid autoimmunity, but you could have autoimmunity somewhere else in your body. We'll see it on the opposite end where the SIGA numbers are through the roof. And that tells me the body is fighting hard. Now, it could be that you have an infection or something going on up above that we need to deal with that's going to calm things down. A lot of times that's what's happening there. And or there's some autoimmunity in the body that we need to quiet down to get that SIGA level back in a healthy range. Because if your immune system is overactive, it may attack your sweet little fetus before or after implantation and see it as a threat. Because what's happening in autoimmunity is your body is attacking itself. Your body, your immune system is so hyperactive that it is attacking itself. Okay, the next marker on the GI map that I love is called anti-gliadin. Anti-gliadin tells us how much sensitivity there is to gluten in the body. Now, you have to be eating gluten for us to see what's going on here. But a lot of times, myself included, the first time I ran this GI map, my numbers were over the lab range, like 350. I also had a lot of other stuff going on in my gut, which is going to make it harder for you to process something like gluten that your body no matter how sensitive you are, your body cannot fully break down the gluten protein and digest it. So it's going to have an inflammatory impact on the body at some level. And for some people, they're really, really sensitive, especially if you have other autoimmunity going on. So if you know you've got an autoimmune condition, it's a good idea to stay away from gluten. And a lot of times when we get Hashimoto's gals, they are, they're like, my doctor said there's not much I can do to reduce my antibody levels on my thyroid. And one of the first things that has been shown to reduce antibody levels by about 40% is cutting gluten out of the diet. Okay, so we'll see this anti-gliadin number that is telling us the immune system is freaking out about the gluten protein in the body. And what happens when it gets activated with its anti-gliadin, a lot of times it attacks the thyroid gland. There's been a lot of research on this where that gets activated, attacks the thyroid gland, causes all kinds of problems with autoimmunity. Okay, EAP is the other immune system marker. This is showing, if there's inflammation in the body or in the gut. So it's been tied, it's used a lot in Western medicine too, and it's been tied to disease states. Now, anytime you've got inflammatory processes going on, it is going to make it really hard to get and stay pregnant. Inflammation is the body's way of saying like, Christ, well, it should be an acute way of the body saying like, there's a crisis, I need to go deal with it because something happened. Like I got injured or I'm ill or I had surgery. The body naturally creates inflammation in those times to help you heal. But when you're stuck in a chronic state of inflammation, which happens a lot, especially with autoimmunity, but also when you've got a lot of imbalances in the gut, that's going to make it really hard to get and stay pregnant. Now, calprotectin is the last marker, which is a direct marker of inflammation. It is the most widely studied marker of inflammation. And it is, I don't want to say everybody who's got high calprotectin is going to end up getting a diagnosis of IBD, but the research shows that it's really closely related to IBD. I've seen these numbers in the hundreds, and the client doesn't have IBD, but they have so much other stuff going on their GI map up above in the viral and parasitic and bacterial sections that it's caused a level of inflammation in the gut that is going to make it near impossible for the GI tract to do what it was designed by God to do. Okay? That's the last marker on the intestinal health section. This little snippet is one of my favorite parts of the tests we run because it gives me a whole lot of information that we will tie back to not only what's above on the GI map to say, what's going on up here? Okay, it makes sense that your calprotectin is higher because you've got X, Y, and Z going on up above, like dysbiosis with bacteria levels or a parasite or an H. pylori infection. But I can also tie it to the other labs that our clients run and say, hey, your digestive markers aren't looking very good. And I'm suspicious of low stomach acid because you mentioned that you take Tums regularly. And I see indications that your zinc levels are low. So we're not just looking at markers. This is a big piece of our practice. I can't speak for all functional medicine practices because they're all different, but of our practice and how we work with our clients is we're not just looking and saying, oh, your elastase is low, so that means you need some pancreatic enzymes to help you digest your food. Here, take this and be on your way. Why is this low? And how does that correlate to everything else you have going on? And that's how we build protocols that help clients get to a place where they can have a successful pregnancy and feel better day to day. So again, it's not like we call it in my training and certification, it was called treating the paper. So a lot of times in Western medicine, the way the training happens and the way practice happens is they're treating the paper. They will run the lab tests and they will spot something that's out of whack and they will be like, we got to do this about this and this about this and this, your vitamin D is low, you're going to take vitamin D. And your liver enzymes are high, so we're going to do a sonogram. And they're treating the paper, but they're not looking at you as a whole person and how everything correlates to each other and to things you have going on in your nutrition and your history and your lifestyle. So we'll do a whole other episode on what that looks like and what the core differences are there that actually help us get to a lot higher success rate than if you were just like, hey, can you run these basic tests for me? Oh, there's no answers. Okay, let's go try fertility treatments. We actually figure out what's going on with you as a whole person. And that's why our clients have so much success. Okay. I could geek out on these tests all day, and we will continue to geek out on these labs. We'll go deeper on the GI map. We'll get into some of the other labs we run. But that's all for today. So if you have any questions, please shoot them to me on Instagram at Fertility Functionally. Any questions that come in, we will answer on next week's episode. I'm happy to take them on the GI map or anything you want to see us talk about here in the future. So thanks for listening and have a great rest of your day.